Morning. Welcome to the first episode of my video vlog, which is called 24/7 Our Agency Story. We own a marketing agency called Solutions 24/7, based in Northwich, which is a little town in the northwest of England, not far from Manchester and not that far from Liverpool. And this is really a weekly blog just for my reference. So I'm going to record history in a similar way to what I did back in the day in my old diaries, which chart an important part of my life back in the day from 2003 to 2012. So 2003 was the birth of my first son, going through to 2007, which is the birth of my second son, and then going through to 2012, which is where the diaries end, which was the birth of 24/7, although its official start date was the November of 2011. We didn't really get cracking until 2012. So back in 2012, obviously it started off with just, well, not really obviously, but it started off with just myself. And now we're a business which sits at 19 people for Solutions, and then another 2 for We Deliver. So that's 21 people. And so obviously over that period of time from 2012 to where we are 2019, the agency has grown a lot, it's changed a lot, and 2019 probably sees a period of time which is probably likely to change and evolve as much again in this year as it's done ever before. So what I'm going to do is keep a note as I'm going along through the week. I'm going to then kind of record it for my own benefit and for anybody else who watches, just to recap what's happened during that week. So a little bit like Big Brother and being sat in the diary room, that kind of thing. So the first thing to note is that it's early in the morning. It's now 5:10. I normally get up, my alarm's set usually for 4:55 in the morning, because I like to get up early and because I can get more things done and get some emails out of the way, and I'm a morning person these days, a bit of clarity, and I can squeeze more out of the hours that I have to play with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recap what happened last week on a day-by-day basis. So last week was week commencing the 14th of January 2019. So on Monday we got some great news. We interviewed a guy the week before. We interviewed actually 3 people the week before to fill a vacancy that we had after our first videographer Ben left to pursue his dreams of wildlife photography in Bristol. We had over 100 applications and we interviewed 3, and it was very close between 2 guys, and ultimately we can only really offer the job for 1 person, and his name was Jake. He works for another, what I would classify maybe as a rival agency, probably a little bit bigger than us. I haven't really looked at the details, but certainly they're based in Chester, I think they're called Marketing Cheshire, and he's handed his resignation and he's joining us hopefully at the beginning of February. So you'll be able to see the preparations for that. I'll probably talk a little bit about that and the things that I have to do every time a new person comes into the business, or in fact leaves. So the other thing that happened on the Monday, that was part of the things that we need to do this year, is because of the growth of the business, we're having to look at all options in terms of moving. So at the moment we're based in Northwich Business Centre, which is an old DSS office, like a social security office that was done up and then split up into different parts. So when we moved the business that originated from my utility room, which is just over there, and the dining room, which is just over there, and this kitchen island. When we moved from there, we moved to the Northwich Business Centre, which was a great place to start because you can just buy offices of different sizes. So we had one that fitted 6 people, and then we moved to a bigger office and bigger, and now we're in an office that's 2,000, I think it's 2,300 square feet. So big enough for us to fit in. So we're, well, like saying 21 people we are, and we've also got part of the office is used to hold the large format printing kit and finishing kit that we've got, which takes up an awful lot of space. So for us to grow as an agency, one of the reasons to grow is so that we can actually have the print in an area which is more purpose built, and then we can also, you know, look to be able to get more people and more desks in. It's certainly a slightly different way of doing it. A lot of people would outsource things, but I like the idea of us having all the skills in house. So we're an agency who does an awful lot of different things. So that's things from promotional things to print to signage and couriers and promotional water and videography and so on and so forth. So basically lots of different things. So because we've got to a size of what we are and we need to grow, if we're going to do the things that I'm planning to do this year, then we need to look at moving. So Monday saw the first, the resurrection of looking for new premises, and we went to see a property on the top of Winnington Hill, which used to be an old fireplace showroom, I think it was, something along those lines. So we went to have a look around that, and it's very much what I would classify as a doer-upper. So really big space, doesn't look particularly appealing from the front, but it's got the important things for us, which is like a big area where people can park the cars. That's like a constant gripe for people who work for us at the moment, because only we have 21 people, and we've only got 8 spaces, eight car park spaces, and one of those is taken by one of our vans. So obviously that means that a lot of people have to park off site and then they have to walk in, and that doesn't make people happy. So yeah, I've had a look at Winnington. Definitely something that I would consider, and it's definitely one that I'm going to have to literally do the numbers up, and that's kind of like looking at the cost per square metre and cost of rates, that kind of thing, drill down into the detail on it. But at the moment I'm not really feeling what I would classify feeling the love for it, so yeah, that's on the pile. So Tuesday the 15th of January was the first day that we offered a job to somebody on a temporary contract, or some people call them 0 hours, but I really don't like the sound of that. But that's basically what it is. So I'm not quite sure how many hours we can offer the guy, but his name's Robert. So he was being offered a job, and he's coming in later on. He came in later on the Friday to do his first job for us, which was an installation job. Tuesday we also, most of the agency went out on the destination marketing side of things, and he did a recce of Warrington, which is a local town to us, and we're right in the middle of pitching for a new piece of business that's like, I would say it's not business critical for us, but it will make a big difference to us. If we get that, then it means a lot more job security for people, and it also probably means the expansion of the team in terms of copywriters, videographers, and what have you. We're certainly going to need, I would say, another maybe 2 members of staff. So again, another reason why we have to look at where we are at the moment. Tuesday also saw the accounts come through for last year. So our year end runs from January the 1st, and although it's all recorded on Zero and it's there, it just helps to have it as a properly checked and verified balance sheet and profit and loss account, which I've had a look through and probably looked through in more detail this year than I've ever done before, and suddenly decided there was a whole load of things that were down in the expenditure of the company were actually cost of sales, so I've got to unpick that. Just one of the joys of my role. But anyway, the accounts look good. Give an idea of the size of we are. Obviously bigger than some and smaller than a lot of others. So our revenue for last year, 2017, the year before, was I think it was about 1.3 million, and last year we did 1.6 million, and we made probably roughly about the same profit. Not tell you exactly how much profit we made, but enough to where the figures were good and everybody got paid, and enough for us to reinvest in things like printing kit and, you know, give us a bit of mattress money is sometimes what I would call it, but money that helps us operate when other people decide that they would rather have their money in their account than ours, which is the cash flow side of things. So Wednesday was a big day for the country as a whole. 2019 is the year of Brexit, so that's where the UK is supposed to be leaving the European Union. So on Wednesday there was a deal that went through that was put to the government, to vote on whether they were happy with the deal that had been agreed with Europe, and they got voted down. So we're in this kind of like crazy situation where well, really, we're supposed to be leaving in March, but nobody still knows what's going to happen. Some people are trying to vote for the referendum to be taken again, and some people are saying crash out of Europe with no kind of trade deal with them. And obviously, that's not really the best time to be thinking about making major changes to a business. The smart move, I would say, would probably be to sit on the cash that we've got and then just wait and see what happens, because as a world economy, we're set for some, I think according to some, we're set for a global meltdown, and so probably investing in and moving and taking on bigger premises would probably not be a particularly good plan for most. But if you don't take risks, pretty much you don't take rewards, and if you stand still, somebody else will be making progress, and potentially you could end up with nothing anyway, so you might as well go for it, pretty much. So obviously Wednesday, yeah, that was it. Brexit, no vote. The vote got voted down, so we don't know what's going on there. Thursday was a bit of a funny day for me, because there was an accident as I was leaving the drive about a few weeks ago, where I pulled out of the drive, and then somebody in the adjacent drive decided it would be a good idea to drive into the side of my car. Didn't do too much damage, but it's just like, great, of course, all these things that I don't really need, complicating an already complicated life, happened. So on Thursday I worked from home, and the car was collected and ended up with a new temporary car. And you might think, well, what's the relevance of this? Well, in the evening when we got back, we went for a bit of a test drive in the car. It's like a white Seat Leon, which is quite nice. I don't mind it, it's quite a nice car. But as we were driving around, we drove around a local village which is near to us called Hertford. And as we were driving around, Hertford's got like it's like an island, kind of like a one-way island. And as you drive around, you drive past what was the home of a company called Scorpio Signs, and Scorpio Signs went out of business last year, I think, or it might have even been this. Yeah, it must have been last year. And one of the people who used to work for Scorpio Signs, Aidan, now works for us. And so that kind of, just as we were driving past, I spoke to Wendy, who's my wife and co-owner of the business, and literally said, like, here's like what in theory is probably a daft idea, but we should look at it anyway. So we drove back to Scorpio Signs and literally drove down and had a look at the size of the unit, because in theory one of the options that we could have to make more room in the business centre we're at now would be to move the print out, because the print room, the room that we've got for print, is probably big enough to have maybe 12 people in. And so if we move that and take that to a separate location, then that means that we've got room to move and put more people in the office, and it also means that the business is separated off and we can get the signage and the print business in a location that's standalone. And Dan, the guy who runs it at the moment, seems to be quite happy to be on his own, albeit that obviously he wouldn't be on his own, because we'd have people who would be working there in production as well. So that's also another option on the table. I think the building, it doesn't say for sale or something like that, so I've got a feeling the building's rented out, and Aidan's, I think he's looking to try and find out the contact details for the people who own the building, so we can probably get a view of that, have a viewing of it. But obviously, if it was suitable for making signs and doing print before, then it's suitable now, and it means that anybody who does the old-fashioned thing of walking around or driving in and just going to a place that they know does signs, then they would go there and see, instead of seeing Scorpio Signs, they'd see Signs 24/7 and print 24/7. So there is a chance that we pick up passing trade, although that's not really the idea to actually grow the business. We've got a few more ideas that are based through marketing. And obviously, one of the great things about having a marketing agency is that if you do get a new idea for a business or a new channel where you can make revenue from it, then we're in a great position where we actually have the people who work with us. So we have like copywriters, we have people who build web, we have graphic designers, we have a social media team, we have somebody who will place the ads on social media. So we have all the building blocks in place to be able to promote any kind of business. Although this year's pretty much an interesting one, because we're certainly, or through following Gary V, who's an entrepreneur, an American entrepreneur, who's really big on documenting things, probably one of the reasons why I'm doing this. But he talks about Facebook marketing, so we're also going to use that to improve the revenue that all the individual channels of our business do. So we're literally on the cusp of that. Also, one of the reasons why I wanted to record this is so we can see, I can tell you whether things work and what things work and what things don't work in terms of the Facebook marketing side of things. So Thursday was also an interesting evening for me. So of an evening I'll tend to, my working day starts at 5 o'clock in the morning, and then it will finish at 9 o'clock at night, where I'll go and watch some box set television with the rest of the family. So kind of 9 to 5, but in a reverse way. But on Thursday, I wanted to help a couple of guys who work for us. So Kat Hooker, who works for us, she has a podcast which is called The Dead Parent Club, and it talks about how it's her having banter with her friends and other individual guests who talk about the effects of like losing a parent when you're young. So an incredibly brave and talented girl. So I wanted to try and see what I could do to help her achieve her goals. I think one of the good things about podcasts or listening to any kind of vlog that other people have done is that you probably get to hear some of the things that maybe you wouldn't get to hear during the working day, because you just don't necessarily have that time to sit down and just find out how they really tick. So luckily, by watching and listening to the podcast that Kat does, it meant that I was able to, and also Josh as well, I was able to see kind of like what they had for goals for 2019, and then really to see if there's anything to do anything that I could do to help them reach the goals that they had. So one of the goals that Kat has is to get her podcast or raise awareness by getting on national television. So I thought, okay, well, this gives me an opportunity to do one of the things that I need to do this year, and that's to kind of understand and become a practitioner and use things like social media channels, so Instagram, Snapchat, Twitch, Facebook and whatever. So at the moment on Thursday I registered for Instagram, which I've never done, and decided that it would be a good idea if I would direct message Philip Schofield, who's a presenter of This Morning, which is like a daytime chat show in the UK, and ask to see whether he would put on Kat on his show. But he hasn't actually replied to me, which is, why would he reply? Well, no idea whether he would reply or not, but I've sent him a message anyway and tried to make him aware of Kat's Kat's ambition to be on television. So I spent a bit of time on that. I also suggested to Kat that we ran some Facebook ads, or that she does a piece to camera, and we run some Facebook ads against employees of BBC and employees of ITV, and try and see if we can raise her profile and get her on television for what is a great cause. She does an awful lot of good. Her and her friend Sam spend a lot of time creating this podcast for the good of other people. So I think it's a great cause. So it's something that it would, if I can help her achieve her goals, then that's a win for. I take that as a personal win as well. So I really wanted to do well. The other person who's doing a blog or a video log or a podcast as well is Josh Edwards, who's our producing director of the videography side of the business. He's also one of the reasons why I'm doing this. He started a vlog called My Big Fat Learning Curve, which is charting and documenting his journey as a videographer. He does some. I think he's 25. He does some really cool things. So he's got a drone, which obviously in itself just puts a complete different perspective on things. So I've been watching some of his videos this weekend in the spare time that I had, and he does like some travel vlogs, I think is what you would call them. So he's been to Thailand. So I've not watched that one, but I watched all the ones on Iceland that he'd done. So he's if you looked him up on YouTube, you find him as Josh Edwards, I think. But I watched them, really, really good, very entertaining, and so he's one of his goals this year. I think he's got a number of goals, but the ones that I thought I could help him with were he wants to be able to sell his own photography. That's the one thing. Obviously, he's got business goals. He wants his channel of the business, which is called Studio 24/7, to turn over a profit and start making some real money, which is great. Obviously works for us as well. And he also wants to, his personal side of things, he wants to sell his photography. So I was looking at or thinking about strategies on what we could do. And I noticed certainly last night when I was back on Facebook looking through my feed or whatever it is, I've noticed that I saw some ads yesterday on mine. I think they were for pictures of a cow. I can't think what it was, but kind of like a modern art, multicoloured illustration of a bull. Sorry, it was, that's what it was. And I think they were selling for about 160 quid or something like that. So I think there's a definite potential that some of the amazing photography that Josh has done could probably be sold on that through Facebook ads. But again, we'll see how that goes as well. I think once we've started doing these in a targeted way, so not just randomly doing it, but doing making these ads contextual and make sense to people who are going to buy these things, then I think they'll work. So again, Thursday night was spent not doing any work, but other than kind of trying to help other people meet their goals. So you'd probably ask, why do that? Why not spend that time doing stuff on the business? And it's a good question, but I think, sometimes I feel good about helping other people. In theory, it could be a bit of a daft thing to do, like, so for example, let's say Kat goes on television or something along those lines, and then she gets offered a job. It'd be like, oh my god, we've got to replace somebody who's an amazing person. But do you know what? If that's what it is, then we'll roll with it. And I just really want the best for everybody who works for us. And if any of them came to me with a particular dream and what have you, if I was in a position to help them or I could give them some advice, then I definitely would do, and definitely do that in what I would classify as my capacity as work dad, is what I often refer myself as. I'm always trying to steer them in what I believe is the right direction. Well, that's the first little bit of a hiccup, because I've just realised that my iPhone doesn't have enough memory on it to be able to record these in one go. So I'm overdue on getting a new iPhone, so I think I'm going to have to put that higher up on my list of things to do. I'm somebody who's a big advocate of having lists and prioritising things during each day. So that's definitely going to be something I'm going to put a bit more effort into. So anyway, that was Thursday. On Friday, Friday was the first day that we trialled Robert doing an installation. So Robert is our temporary guy who's a bit of a handyman, and he's working with Aidan on installation. So he went out doing his first install. I'm not quite sure where. Oh yeah, it was Hilton Park. So he was installing some poster frames for us, and that worked really well. He fits in really well. He's a really, really nice guy, and we're going to do, or certainly I'm going to do everything in my power to take the guy on and to make it, make his just give him a place where he can have a job and feel secure. I feel pretty sorry for this guy. I don't know why, but for some reason or other, people just aren't. People were looking at his CV. I think it's maybe because his CV might have been 7 pages long, and they were looking at him and just thinking, he's past it or anything. But he's 52. He's got loads of energy. He's got bags of experience. So he's just the right guy that we're looking for. We put an advert out on, I think he came to us. We put an advert out on Facebook for some temporary packers for the print room, and fair play to him, he didn't reply. He just literally came into the office, and probably old school style, you could say, and literally came in with a printout of his CV, and then sat down in front of Wend, and she liked him and thought he was pretty good. And then I think it was last, I think it was maybe probably even at the weekend, maybe on the weekend, I'd said, oh yeah, okay, well I think there's an opportunity for us to work together. And so yeah, Friday was his first day in the business, and he did really good. Yeah, he did really good. So that was great. Friday evening was an interesting evening because one of the things that we've got is particularly like a lot of companies that start off, you probably have one big client who's your main client, and then you kind of, if you're sensible, you're trying to always be looking to grow the amount of clients and try and diversify, because you never know that day when things are going to change in your big client's business. And I think that's happened. Well, that's happened this year for our bigger client, because they had a CEO that was with them for 20 plus years, and that CEO has now left, and there is a new one in the business. So it's a time of change, and it probably underlines to me the reason or the rationale why it's always good to be trying to diversify and get your business so that it's not dependent on any one particular one. So whilst obviously if that client left tomorrow it would have a major impact on us, it wouldn't finish us off as a business yet. We'd totally have to restructure, and that would be sad. But the good news is that we would carry on. Don't necessarily think for myself, it's not necessarily about the obviously being able to pay the mortgage and the bills and have holidays and whatever. Yes, that's important, but as much as anything, it's just the enjoyment and the the challenge of actually doing the thing that keeps me going, and that inspires me. So that there has to be a reason why I get up. So I think this morning, I woke up at, I think it was about 3:40 or something along those lines. And so rather than toss and turn in bed, I was like, okay, well, I'll get up, I'll try and set this video log up and try and see whether I can get that going. So hence here we are. Time now is getting on. Was it 5 to 6? So I'm gonna have to really push on, because I would normally be doing other things around this time of the morning. So anyway, on Saturday, I was in work again, so we had a load of poster frames that needed posters inserted on as part of our growing installation side of the business. So I actually had a team of my son and 4 of his friends, which was really great. A lot of people. It's quite sad in this day and age that there's a lot of this isn't what you would call child labour. Obviously, these lads are really keen and incredibly thankful to have the opportunity to just come along and and do something to earn a little bit of extra pocket money, which is kind of crazy. Obviously, we have to make sure that all the right paperwork's in place, but gone are the days where kids can work easily. They just can't do that anymore. There's all kinds of, rightly so, there's all kinds of legislation that's in there for their own protection, but equally on the same basis, they miss that opportunity that they want to be able to get into a work environment, to be able to say that they've done some kind of work. So I feel it's really pretty sad, because they worked really, really hard. Yes, they did have some kind of crazy rave music on while they were doing it, but the guys, got the job done, which is great, and thanks to them and more power to them. So on Saturday night, the majority of them came back here, and stopped over at our house with Mac, and they were partying till the early hours of the morning whilst I was watching, having a couple of drinks and watching James Bond Spectre, so that was good. So yeah, it was a good day on Saturday. Sunday was, I don't know, I think it's probably going to be one of those days that's, you know, potentially a life-changing day for us. Not for the fact that I had to then get up early in the morning and tidy up all the and sort out all the waste from all the packing in boxes that we had, and hoovering up the office and try and making it tidy again. So all that was sorted out so that when people come in, it's all tidy and ready to go. But also, Wendy and I also viewed a property in Hertford, which is another potential one that we're looking at. So this is a property which is completely different to the rest, where we've got a house, and then that's also got kind of 6 acres of land or something along those lines, and it's also actually got a business which was the home of another agency that's based in Northwich, that's now moved onto Lostock Business Park or something along those lines. So they've moved out of there, so it's kind of good because it's already been set up for an agency, but it's the kind of like the dream location in some way. So it's out in the countryside, it's in the fields, it's kind of like an idyllic location. And God, yeah, I mean, it's really difficult because the house that we've got here, I've fallen in love with. This is where I actually feel it's my home, and I feel safe, and the dog's over there on the couch, they love it, and the kids have grown up here. And so the idea of having to sell all this up and then use that to potentially buy another house which I don't feel connected with is, you know, for the sake of the business, is a bit of a crazy idea. But I'm somebody who looks at things in an analytical way. So if I see that it's the right thing to do, and that and there's the big if we can afford to do that, then that's probably, you know, something that's going to be something that we're going to have to go for. So that's what I'm going to have to do, is the due diligence of it. So look to see whether all the people fit in, and in theory they can, because at the time they were a 20-person business, and there's I think they said there was plenty of room for that and plenty of room to grow after that. The other thing within that area is that obviously if you've got 6 acres, then providing you can get things through planning, then there's also room to expand in terms of adding to it in some way, shape or form. And I've always had this personal dream or an idea that we could have some kind of business park, you know, where other small businesses would work and would kind of enjoy that kind of like being out in the country feeling, and have like a small, you know, that kind of like 1 and 2 person business that just wants somewhere to start off and but be part of a community that can serve them. So in theory it works for us and it works for them, and so yeah, that's like a really interesting thing. But it's an awful lot of money, and it would be an awful lot of upheaval, because obviously we'd be moving our house, moving our home. We live nearby to great schools, so it just for me feels just like an absolutely crazy option. But yeah, it could be, and that's again probably one of the reasons why I'm going to document this journey. Last year we looked at moving to a similar kind of setup that had a house and it had a barn that would need a lot of work and conversion to turn it into an office space. and it had like another workshop which we could have used for a printing machine. So this is similar to this, but like I would say it's more suitable for us. So it's let's have a think. So if we're 2,500 square foot, this place that we're looking at is, I think it's 3,600 square feet. So in theory, it should have enough room for us to be able to fit in and also have a little bit of room for growth, and that's before we would need to do things like expanding and building on or adding pods, or I don't know, maybe getting shipping containers that are then cut out and turned into working spaces or whatever it would be. But whatever it would be, it would have to be pretty cool, I think. So yeah, we've got that. Sunday's also the day that I go for a walk with my mum and dad. So we went for a walk down there, down the river. That's another thing that I really enjoy doing is walking. That's one thing that really helps me, is walking with the dogs and getting some time out to see my parents. So yeah, went for a nice walk with them. It takes about an hour to do. And I saw something really bizarre. I've never seen it before, but somebody was actually fishing on the river. I think it's called the River Dane. I think should really know more about Northwich, but he was fishing from a canoe with a keep net attached to the canoe, which is a bizarre things. But apparently, I think it's in Canada. You can get, according to, went out for a meal last night, that's the other thing I should say, and I was told last night when I was recounting this tale last night that you can actually get in, I think in America or Canada, big rubber wings that are big rubber rings that are attached to like waders, and you can have all like your fishing tackle and maggots and all the rest of it, and you paddle yourself around in a giant rubber ring. I mean, bottom line is, I don't really like fishing. It's not for me. I think a lot of the time, I think fishing probably seems to be some form of escapism from life or your wife or whatever. It's probably, it's not something that I would ever want to do. Yeah, literally, it's a battle for me to get everything done that I want to do already. So why I would want to sit on a riverbank and be watching a float. I don't think my eyesight's good enough to even see the float for that matter, and then be picking up maggots and what have you. Yeah, not for me. So I've also made some notes for myself in terms of the other things that I might well make some notes on this week, and I think probably one of the questions would be, why am I doing this? This whole process. And if you want to look it up, you can look up a guy called Gary V. He's I've mentioned him before on this post. He's probably started through recommendation from Ben and from Josh, who works for us. They shared a podcast to me, one of his podcasts, and I thought he was pretty annoying, I think, and a bit full on. But the more I've listened to him, the guy speaks a lot of truths that are probably really true to me more than anybody else. So he's an entrepreneur, he's built a business, he's into social media and what have you. So the more I've learned about him, the more I've come to respect and admire his opinions, and seen how a lot of the things that I think are similar to the things that he would recommend, and it's helped me change and evolve. And I would say it's also probably made me a happier person. So there's been things that I've changed in the way that I do the business on a day-to-day basis, even ridiculous things like making sure that I say good morning to everybody in the morning, have a little 2-minute chat, and it maybe takes probably half an hour of my time up, but I think it's definitely helped members of the team of our team to feel more bonded to us and feel happy with themselves. So it's kind of yeah, it's kind of been good. And he's a big advocate, or he pushes a lot to do with social media and the importance of it. That's something that I've not really given much thought up to this point, in terms of I just didn't really see the point of it, and truth be told. So I haven't been on Facebook until like this week. You know, I went on, set up a Twitter account maybe 3 years ago, and I've not been on it. LinkedIn I've been on for years, and I just couldn't really see the point. It's like, well, what's the value of it? I wanted to spend the time, delivering good service for my clients and what have you, and building a business that was fun and exciting and was always challenging. But now we've got to that point now where we've reached a business that has got to a great point where I can actually become an MD. So before that point, I was spending all my time doing the work, so kind of like project managing jobs for the clients. But what I found was that I was, a lot of the time was spent looking at things like the finances within the business, looking at that cash flow, looking at things to do with HR, looking at things to do with like the IT and stuff like that. So like, for example, this year we've done things like had a brand new server put in. So I was spending less and less time doing that. So this year's been more about formalising that process to actually become a managing director rather than somebody who works on the business rather than in the business. So that's been another change. So Gary V would say to you or advise that you should document and then share it, because people like watching people being honest. So that's what I'm going to try and do as much as I can on these vlogs. Honest to myself and honest so that any of the people who work, it's probably going to be, I would have thought, probably people who maybe work with me probably watch this, or one thing, maybe they're going to listen to it so that they can get themselves to sleep. So I think I've got one of these really droning, monotonous voices. Sorry and all that, but when I talk to my own wife, there's quite a lot of times that she'll be yawning and what have you. So maybe people just are going to use it to send themselves to sleep. I would think maybe some kind of sleep remedy. Maybe that's the purpose of this, that people can listen to this and fall asleep. Who knows? Anyway, so well, here we are. It's a Monday morning. This is where we're at today. I was going to be going to a meeting with a video client, but I've decided to let Josh go on his own because I trust him to do that, and it's going to leave me more time to crack on with the stuff on my to-do list, which is massive. So anyway, till next week. Thanks for listening.